Right now, our view is water is more valuable than oil and gas. It's a precious gift. And the main aspect in our work, we're trying to keep the mega corporations accountable. This what they're doing now, taking the oil and the gas. It's short term. It won't sustain them as is being demonstrated right now. The privileged folks come. Well, why don't you just move? Why don't they just move? This is our homeland. We're following instructions from the holy people. Time of emergence. This is your land. The sacred mountains. Cisnachene. Tzotzil. Dokonsli. Depensa. Zilna Utilit. Zilchol. That's your Hogan. That's your home. And we want to stay here. Some of the statements we've said is, oh yeah, these development companies, they'll come and go. But you know what? The Navajo people will still be here. And that's the part that has to be understood.
The Greater Chaco is a vast landscape in the Four Corners region of what has come to be known as the United States. This is the sacred homeland of the Pueblo and Diné people, whose ancestors thrived here before colonization. For centuries, the people of Chaco developed extensive road systems. At the heart of these routes was Chaco Canyon, a remarkable central destination for trade and connection amongst indigenous peoples who would gather to share goods, knowledge, ceremony, and community. Here, the ancestors of indigenous groups in the Southwest built architectural wonders, the great houses and kivas that align with cycles of the moon and sun. Nestled in the high desert of northwestern New Mexico, Chaco and the living landscape that surrounds it remain profoundly sacred to Pueblo and Diné people throughout the region. Today, Chaco Culture National Historical Park is a UNESCO World Heritage Site that protects the living center of both ancient and contemporary indigenous cultures in the region. These lands are the center of our living traditions. There are countless sacred sites that do not fall within the park boundaries. These extend tens of thousands of miles across the Southwest. Some are on modern maps. Many are not. These sites are of utmost importance to the indigenous people who call this place home. But many of these sites have long endured looting and vandalism, and now they are often surrounded by extractive industries. Once these places are destroyed, they cannot be rebuilt. More than 91% of the available lands in the Greater Chaco have already been leased for oil and gas extraction. Right now, we are fighting to save the last 9%.
One wonderful thing for Indigenous people that has come out of this Chaco Coalition is the Dene and Pueblo solidarity. It's interesting because at one point in our histories, there was definite tension and even adversarial tension between Pueblo and Dene people. And in this moment in time, that old historic beef, so to speak, has totally been squashed.
Hinomopoyu heremba tataikam kitupaf tatoshoitoyai tatoraini. My name is Kitupaf, which means village flower. I am from the Green Reed Place, and my clan is the Sun Clan. I love being from Sandia. It's my home forever. It's otherworldly. I've spent most of my life on the res, but I'm also a city girl. I work in the city, and I go to school in the city. But sometimes when I'm driving north to Sandia from Albuquerque, and I see the mountains, I imagine that time when my homelands were thriving and the city wasn't there. Only Tiwa people.
Yat Shea San Washington Shne Tachini Shlo Ki Ani Bashichin Nakai Dene Dashache Ashihin Dashanale. Hi, my name is Kendra Pinto, and I am a member of the Navajo Nation. It's a funny thing trying to describe home. We see the land. We see it with love. We see it with pride. This place cannot be recreated. This place is an area where my great-grandfather rode his horse through. My home is isolated. My home is invisible to many. For me, home is seeing the trees. Home is seeing the cactus. Home is picking Navajo tea. It's my responsibility to take care of this place. This area is a tricky place to want to support and protect because of the checkerboard issue. It's really a strange and weird issue to talk about checkerboard. I don't think very many people think about boundaries that are created around our homes and that they want us to stay on the reservation and only to speak about the reservation. It's pretty interesting, the power struggles that happen with the jurisdictions. We have to deal with that.
The 1868 treaty between the United States and the Navajo Nation carved out a small piece of the Dene people's traditional homelands, bound by the sacred mountains. As you move east towards the center of the Greater Chaco, Dene lands are even more fragmented. These tribal trust and allotment lands are now crisscrossed by a hodgepodge of legal jurisdictions that have been imposed upon the region. These include the Bureau of Land Management, the State of New Mexico, the National Park Service, privately owned lands, and lands managed by the National Forest Service, and, of course, over 40,000 oil and gas wells. The result is a bureaucratic nightmare for communities as they fight to protect the Greater Chaco region for the health and well-being of their communities and for a just transition away from extractive industries. In 2014, impacted communities decided enough was enough and founded the Greater Chaco Coalition. a collaboration formed between more than 200 Indigenous, environmental, and community groups to fight political battles and to tell their stories for the protection of the Greater Chaco landscape.
I know I have been quoted as to say that I want a moratorium, and I'm pushing for a moratorium with all of the development, which is true. Is it really going to happen with the way everything is going? And with all of the development of the pump jacks and the pipelines, and you kind of think, is it going to stop? Is it going to slow down? It seems like no matter what we say, it just continues and continues. A lot of the community people can tend to rely a lot on springs, spring water. And that's what we worry about. In the community, some of those springs are probably about 1.5 to 2 miles away from developed pump jacks and fracking areas. And that's what that really worries us now, is sooner or later, something's going to happen to the aquifer by getting contaminated by all the fracking that's going on. We've always warned the BLM is that if you miscontaminate our aquifer in any way, said the gloves come off.
The Greater Chaco landscape is in a state of persistent drought. An average of less than 10 inches of rain falls here each year. Widespread water shortages are the norm here. And with those shortages comes the widespread loss of crops and pastures. The groundwater and delicate aquifers that support all of the life in this area have already been impacted by climate change. It is not an exaggeration to say that surviving and thriving here requires a special kind of genius. Indigenous people here have always been innovative and careful stewards of water, and this is still true today. But control of this precious life source has been largely stripped from local Indigenous communities. An estimated 1/3 of Diné families do not have access to running water and have to travel for miles to find and haul water to their homes.
My name is Ernie Platero, and my mother's clan is Northern Paiute. My father's clan is Bitterwater, and I live here in Torreon, New Mexico, which is about 40 miles east of Chaco Canyon. Day to day, we don't have any running water or electricity, so my day starts early every day. I have to get water, but we've been living this way since I remember. We've never had running water. It's a lengthy process, which I have to do every day because we need water every day. We can get by with this a little, which we've done for years and years. My ancestors did it, my father did it, my grandma did it. It's work, it's a lot of work. We have to, we've got no choice. Where are we going to turn to? There's nobody to turn to. My father, when he passed, he left me with a lot of sheep to take care of, which was good. But now I don't have. I got one. When people come around now, they say, "Where's all your sheep?" The sheep need water. We need water. And when the water table goes low, I can't provide for the sheep and provide for myself. Therefore, I have to sell off the sheep, which I don't want to do. But, if I had running water, then problem solved. But that water down there, I'm really depending on it. I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life, most likely.
Would you support oil and gas development in this area?
No. If they were to come back, I believe they would, they would. Something's going to happen again,
Mm-hmm.
Oil spills. As far as the oil and stuff, no. I don't believe they're going to help in any way.
It takes millions of gallons of water to frack a single well in the Greater Chaco. For every barrel of oil, an average of 4 to 7 barrels of toxic wastewater are produced. This produced wastewater is a combination of the water used to drill a well and the toxic waste that comes up from underground. It tends to be salty, muddy, laced with chemicals, and even radioactive. It is misleading to continue to refer to this toxic waste as water. Much of this toxic liquid is injected into underground wells, threatening the already delicate aquifers that local communities depend on. While oil and gas companies are free to pump as much water as they want out of underground aquifers for fracking, more than 1/3 of Navajo Nation members do not have access to clean water.
This is my ancestral homeland, Chaco Canyon. I feel compelled to always honor and respect the legacy that my ancestors left for me and our people. And in doing so, that means protecting the land, protecting the mountains and every animal that lives on this land, to ensure that we are always putting the people and the greater good first. I'm disheartened to see that so much development has happened without any real benefits to the people who are giving up the land.
Being here, it definitely summons a lot of emotions, like excitement, also cautious, because I have a lot of respect for my ancestors.
I want to make sure like I'm respecting everything here, touching the walls, even just putting prayers down this morning. Thank you for allowing me to be here, and I'm just passing through. I'm not trying to disrupt anything.
The main thing that I feel is definitely the strong presence of history and my culture. When you're in these rooms, you just think, my ancestors used to live in here and trade with other indigenous people from all over the world. You can't help but just try and reimagine what it was like in its prime. I don't know if that happens to everybody, but for me, being a descendant of this place, some sort of memory is triggered. I think that's the frustration behind everything. How do you explain to somebody that doesn't feel or have some kind of connection to this place? How can you tell them that you don't want more extraction encroaching in on this area, desecrating the health and safety of like the living culture here? To me, it's just like we're always in the way. We're always in the way of the state or like the federal government just making money.
I mean, I was always told that I lived two separate lives. You live your white life, they would say, like your outsider life, and then you have your life at home. But there's a lot of emphasis on being educated and getting a good job, and doing all that definitely takes you away from some of the traditional stuff that we do at home. Albuquerque isn't just on the border of Sandia. It's literally sitting on top of it. There used to be 13 Tiwa-speaking pueblos that were scattered throughout what are now considered the city limits. Our homes and cultures were, and still are, considered just something in the way. Everywhere you go in New Mexico, there are symbols and statues that celebrate the perpetrators of atrocities committed in the name of colonial expansion. Spanish conquest is celebrated throughout New Mexico, and it's something that Pueblo people just can't ignore.
It hurts knowing that our land is up for grabs. Like, just no respect, no respect for our things, our way of life is what hurts. I think like our spirits every day that I'm indigenous and that I possess this gift, and just seeing this imperialist violent pressure to exploit things that are just way older and have existed here longer than man has ever existed here, just be totally commodified and have a dollar sign placed on them is what hurts.
Betsinchtliji nahaszanigi hinau yinal nihimat Hat ida nahaszan betsadon de doliesh goe bokhi ha ila ben yae kwa beninanigi walonda tse konilia dida tse belash lai chudos in ben yanilia Edo dauda tse ado bahwind en binti it edo lish. Also, inna elhi selahaki ba akonitzen ko ado ot aho kehuit ido.
By the 1960s, the U.S. was no longer able to satisfy American demands for energy from domestic sources. With these growing demands for energy, extraction boomed across the western United States. Foreseeing the disruptive nature of energy development in the West, the National Academy of Sciences produced a report that concluded that restoring arid desert lands like those of Greater Chaco so that they could be used safely again would not be feasible. Because extraction would cause such irreparable damage here, the National Academy of Sciences warned that pursuing energy development was tantamount to declaring these lands national sacrifice areas, signaling that domestic energy production is more important to federal agencies than the people and places that are sacrificed in the process. Those practices, established in the 1970s, are still reflected in the federal leasing and permitting practices on tribal homelands throughout the Southwest, and the people that live here are still forced to live with the impacts of those policies.
The designation of our homelands, our cultural homelands, and all of the heritage that exists within that as a sacrifice zone means that we were written off for the benefit of American empire and the American economy, with no regard and no concern for the impacts to our lands, our waters, our soils, and our people, and with no concern with the impacts that the legacy of this contamination is going to have on our future generations. That is one of the true injustices around the building of American power and American infrastructure.
Environmental racism is when they choose a certain people and put all the known dangerous environmental and health impacts on those people. They put all the dangerous chemicals on that one people and keep it away from another people because they know it's dangerous. That's as simple as you can get, I think. The energy dominance agenda of the Trump administration, good riddance, was that very idea. In order to become the world leading producer of oil, they tried to cut out all kinds of safety nets to protect communities for oil and gas.
Over the last decade, there has been an average of one oil and gas-related spill every 2 days in the greater Chaco region. Toxic releases like these exacerbate the daily chemical exposures that residents already face from living so close to fracking operations. These chemicals include volatile organic compounds and known carcinogens like benzene and toluene, and deadly gases like hydrogen sulfide. Meanwhile, methane, the primary component of natural gas, is a notoriously outsized contributor to climate change. This invisible, odorless gas can trap up to 86% times more heat than carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It leaks out of poorly maintained oil and gas infrastructure, and sometimes operators purposefully vent or flare it, wasting hundreds of millions of dollars. Members of the Greater Chaco Coalition have long advocated for the adoption of strong methane regulations to keep this pollutant out of the atmosphere. But methane is just one of many toxins that are regularly released from oil and gas operations, contributing to the region's smog and water problems and posing a threat to public health. One educational tactic the coalition developed early on was the Fracking is Fracking reality tour, led by longtime advocate Navajo Nation Council delegate Daniel Tso. Tso has taken countless groups of students, legislators, and anyone wanting to learn through the backroads of Diné communities where they witness firsthand the sounds, smells, and destructive impacts of fracking on the landscape.
We as the Diné people, we have our own way with regards to how we want to keep in balance and in harmony with our natural environment. The way things are going is just like all for the purpose of getting more money out of whatever extraction can be made. And they're not really concerned about the health of individual. And so that's where I think is something that needs to really be taken seriously, because we're talking about the health of our people. We're talking about the health of our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, and the future generation. And some of the medicine people that I've talked to over in Eastern Navajo are saying that they would like to at least leave something for their children and their grandchildren. And with all the land that where the extraction is happening, the pollution that is occurring out there is basically killing the land. And they don't really feel comfortable about giving something that's not really productive, the land that is not productive, that cannot be used to raise corn or even provide vegetation to the livestock. They don't really feel comfortable in passing that on to their children.
In a community-led survey, the vast majority of residents in the heart of Greater Chaco reported sore throat and sinus problems, chronic coughs, headaches, itchy eyes, joint pain, and fatigue, and 70% reported nosebleeds and wheezing. A growing number of studies show that frontline communities like these are at significant risk of chronic and acute respiratory and reproductive health problems.
One of the important things that we need to remember is we've inherited so much from the Indigenous women, the matriarchs that have led these struggles from the community level all the way to the international level, and really uphold their leadership, because so much of what we're fighting against is rooted in heteronormative patriarchy. We have to be able to confront those institutions and work within those institutions with the wisdom of our matriarchs, and remember that no matter how overwhelming those systems of power can be, they can never take away our right and our ability to love and to lead with compassion and with commitment to healing. At those times when I feel like things get really overwhelming and really depressing and heartbreaking, in those times, I just reflect on people like Hazel and their mothers
that they came from and the prayers that they carry and the things that they have fought against throughout their lives, and stand in awe at how these women still carry at the forefront of everything they do this profound sense of love.
When you walk into the Hogan, it's a really special feeling, especially if it's a ceremonial Hogan that sits aside just for ceremonies. You know you're going into the womb of Mother Earth, and that's where your place is at. I've noticed that more and more people want to have a ceremony in the most traditional setting, and so people have come here to get healed. And this is a healing place, and it's our church. People call it their church. Well, maybe this is equal to it. So let's, understand the fact that we have our churches, and that we live right in them. There's so many teachings in this Hogan. It represents the 6 sacred mountains, and it also represents the 4 directions. It represents male and female. It represents all these beautiful teachings of the Ne Behowan Bahanet Dot Nantikin. And I'm proud to say that we can actually practice that here. As a matriarch, there's so much responsibility.
I got to have a life experience with my aunts and my grandmothers, and then also some of the warrior women from Big Mountain area, which inspired me to do the work that I'm doing right now today. The young women that are in the front lines defending the land, it's really an honor to watch these young women present themselves. They are learning both ways, the Western way and then the traditional way, and using those 2 different thoughts of mind, you can actually defend your people and have a victory.
To others out there who are facing the same or similar situation as mine or the Chaco region, what I can say is it's tough. It sucks. It's a message you'll have to repeat over and over and over. The preparation for a hearing takes weeks. And when those 5 minutes are there, what do you say to make them feel how important this land is to you?
I thank all of the people from tribes whose homeland we're sitting on right now for coming today and being here with us. I feel like I ran for Congress because I wanted to be a voice for people like you, because I feel like I know what's important to you. And the thing that was different about yesterday was the camera, was the infrared camera. I had never looked through a camera to see pollution like that just spewing out of pipes in my life. I've never seen that before. So I feel like that one thing helped me tremendously to further my knowledge about what my charge is as a congresswoman. So thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to share with you the efforts being done in the Eastern Agency of the Navajo Nation. My name is Kendra Pentel, and I live near Chaco Culture National Historical Park. It is a sacred site now under attack by air noise and light pollution associated with local resource extraction. How will the federal government guarantee the protection of cultural resources if they continue to ignore tribal consultation in the leasing process? Today, there are thousands of cultural resources and sites that have not been accounted for by the BLM. This sends a clear message. Federal agencies are not properly consulting with tribes on the potential impacts to historic properties and cultural resources. In July 2016, a site owned by WPX exploded and 36 storage tanks holding oil and produced water caught fire. Have the Bureau of Land Management thoroughly analyzed the impacts of approving development in this location and the potential impacts to public health, safety, the air, and surrounding environment?
then maybe residents could have been spared that traumatic night of having to evacuate their homes. We can smell the pollution, see the flares, and hear the methane being released every day. We cannot continue to adopt a wait-and-see approach to methane regulations, especially when we know there are already common sense steps industries can take to stop venting, leaking, and flaring if they are held accountable. The regulations needed to protect me and my family go beyond fines and violations. They must ensure that all generations now and in the future are considered and treated with respect in their right to clean air and clean water. Thank you.
Right now, a lot of these places, it's in a state of equilibrium. Took years to be in that state of balance. Nature thrives by dynamic process. It's an old traditional knowledge. As'anare, they call it. You disturb that balance, it's not without consequences. So it's a whole system. It's organic. That's how the traditional mind works. So taking that into consideration and talking to your American trained business people, sometimes very difficult to do. A lot of time people just don't care. From the beginning, they'll sit in, but really don't listen. But if we're going to go the next step, if we're going to have a negotiated settlement where everybody wins to the extent that they can benefit without harming too many things, then they have to come together because their belief system is different. Ours is different. And so to negotiate with those, different differences, to do truly cross-communication, that takes some time. You have to go beyond being nice to each other and kind of like pretend like, you understand each other and nod your head. You got to go beyond that. You got to go to into real negotiation, really understanding each other. Then you're on equal terms.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Duhinome Itzakiwitsa Shuimi Hanu. My name is Deborah Holland. I'm from the Turquoise Clan and an enrolled member of Laguna Pueblo. Chaco Canyon and the greater Chaco region have been home to my people for centuries. As a 35th generation New Mexican and a descendant of the indigenous inhabitants of what is now the Southwest United States, I can say that there are few places more exceptional than the Chaco region. 90% of the federal lands in this region are already open to oil and gas extraction, and New Mexicans are all too familiar with the toxic impacts it has on clean air, clean water, and their health and the health of their children. This proposal is about respecting our history and protecting our culture. We owe it to tribal communities, to the people of New Mexico, and to people the world over to permanently protect the Chaco region.
Getting Secretary Holland confirmed as the first Indigenous woman, the first Indigenous person to hold the position of the Secretary of the Interior is important, particularly because she carries those values as an Indigenous matriarch. Our leaders, our movement leaders, and our other matriarchs and our traditional knowledge holders can hold her accountable to that and remind her who she is and where her mandate comes from. And it's not from just one place or peoples. Her mandate comes from our natural laws, it comes from the earth, it comes from holding at the forefront of everything she does consideration for how do we protect all of sacred life.
This moment is profound when we consider the fact that a former Secretary of the Interior once proclaimed his goal to, quote, civilize or exterminate us. I'm a living testament to the failure of that horrific ideology. We know that climate change can only be solved with participation of every department and of every community. Coming together in a common purpose, this country can and will tackle this challenge. I'll be fierce for all of us, for our planet and all of our protected land, and I'm honored and ready to serve.
It's been a real uphill battle that we've been fighting with regards to oil companies coming in and just doing whatever they want to do. And one of the things that I'm hoping is that we're able to make recommendation to our government, the Navajo Nation government, and then also the state government, the federal government. And hopefully with Deb Haaland there, she can be an integral part of this whole process. And I know that within her heart, she sees the need to preserve our land, our people, because our people were really closely interconnected with the earth and the environment. And so for the preservation of our people, I think she's got her heart in the right place as far as addressing a lot of the things that we're faced with that's a detriment to our people.
In 2021, the President of the United States says, let's protect the greater Chaco landscape. We're thankful for the many, many organizations that helped us get to this point. And certainly we appreciate the congressional leadership to agree that there needs to be these protections. Certainly, today's acknowledgement is to be acclaimed, but in the way to say it's a celebration, it's not, because we recognize that the work continues. It's going to have to continue.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. There you go, Madam Secretary.
This process could essentially set precedents for how to protect other cultural landscapes. It could be this example for other Indigenous nations and communities. This is a global struggle because all Indigenous people across the entire earth are fighting to protect their inherent sovereignty from extractive industries. We have to be in solidarity in order for us to adapt to changing climate, because that's ultimately what this is. Oil and gas is changing our climate, and honoring Chaco is a way for us to also create and shape processes that haven't ever really been done before, but that ensures tribes, sovereign nations, communities, frontline communities, grassroots movements, that they're included in this process, because our values really are to make this world a better place. And if there's avenues and opportunities for us to be included in that, then that's the next step that we're going to take.
You know, I'm so pleased that I feel like this fight to keep fracking out of Chaco Canyon has brought the Pueblos together. It's brought the Pueblos and the Navajo Nation together. All the communities who share this beautiful land of New Mexico, they've all come together to work toward protecting this area, and that makes me very happy. We're going to collaborate, and we're going to make sure that we're working hard to protect this beautiful landscape, this living landscape.
Generations and generations of Navajo people existed on the land. We have the ecological knowledge. We're brought up with it. We want to be at the table, not in consultation, but to be a full-fledged voice, to be a full-fledged partner in the discussion for just transition, for those aspects of climate change. We stand ready to participate in this discussion. We are the voice. The community is the voice. And that's the purpose of our work.